So for a lot of your clients, getting in a shin box position will be extremely challenging for them. So again, we want to be able to modify it and help give them feedback upon how to be in this position. Especially a lot of your male clients who generally have extremely tight hips, this can be very problematic, learning how to come up from the bottom to the top position. So again, we could say use your glutes, but that's meaningless to your client. We want to give them some actual feedback of how to extend their hips into this position. So what I have is a moderate band around Jessica's pelvis. So again, we don't want it too high up. We want it to be based around the bony parts of her hip. So what she's going to do is she's going to try to stay tall just right now. We're not going to add any of the weight variances. And I want her to try to push through the band to bring her hips forward. And you see at the top, this forces her to engage her glutes by pushing against the band, but also again, applying some pressure on her feet. Now for a lot of your clients, they may be able to come all the way back to the bottom. That's fine. Nice, just like Jessica did. Nice and decelerate. So again, one of the things I'm looking for in this case is Jessica's ability to decelerate her hips as she lowers herself. So again, if Jessica comes up for a second, if she just sort of gets to a point and sort of just falls, so just go down slow and like that, that means we potentially have some problems learning how to decelerate in our hips, learn how to absorb force, and that could be a reason we're also having back issues. So again, this is not, we just want to see the sign of the hips be able to extend. We want to be able to see them control the descent as well. Now for some of your clients, they can't get in this position. This is too difficult. So if Jessica comes up, we may actually work a lot of positioning from here. So this top position. So a lot of your clients could actually function from here. And again, we don't want to put them in a position where they're having great discomfort, so this can be very friendly. Now what we do is just work at short range for a lot of your clients, so they don't have to come down the ground. Just work within a short range and just learning how to use the hips as she goes into motion. So again, we can just sort of teach them within the range of motion they possess how to start engaging. What you'll find is, go ahead and relax, Jessica, that a lot of people, as they start working through those progressions, as they start working through those ranges, their body starts to free up as they start getting more familiar with how to use their body. Because a lot of the restrictions, a lot of the lack of mobility is due to their body not giving themselves permission because the body doesn't feel stable in that environment. So as we can make the body go, okay, this is friendly, this is not going to hurt so much, then we start to add their progression. So any of the drills that you see that we can use in that top position, that top shin box. And we can do the same things to orient people into a lot of these movements, and we can even work some of that get-up positioning that we'll break down shortly into that top position only. So again, don't be afraid to deconstruct some of these movement patterns to find the point of entrance that a lot of your clients can access. So again, you don't have to do it from the bottom position. That just gives you some gauge that we may have some hip mobility problems, but also realize that there just might be better environments for your client to perform from. So at this point, we can create a little bit more stress upon the body, which means we create a little bit more core tension, which is always a positive thing when we're trying to create that proximal stability, but not necessarily going heavier because the lever arm of pressing the weight out and the band tension is going to make it very difficult to go up in weight. We're going to change where the position goes. So Jessica's going to go from a power press into an overhead chop. Now, a couple of important things is as she goes into the chop, she wants to keep breaking the bag because she wants to keep her arms locked out. So when she's overhead, she's still pressing down to press the weight up. So as she presses out, she's now going to create that tension. So now I'm making sure her ribs don't elevate, which is doing a great job because she's pressing down, and then she's going to pull it back into her body. So she's pressing out from the belly button, coming over the crown of her head, and see how her arms stay locked, even though the weight is pulling her off to her left side. Nice job, Jess. So a lot of times people get, focused upon the task, which is just trying to get the weight overhead. So they break in their elbows, they start to elevate with their chest, they forget the principles that we're trying to teach, which is tension into the ground and into the weight to create that stability so we don't see those compensations of movement. If you're having problems with that, then stay within that power press, build up some tolerance and some strength, and you'll see that it will greatly enhance making progressions like these that go a long ways in building that core stability. When we actually create more stability in that frontal plane and stabilize the hips, we'll be able to create better internal rotation of the hip without losing our trunk. So sometimes, especially with the shin box progressions that we've already demonstrated for you, you're going to have people that either A, can't function in that position, whether it is a injury history, overweight, they can't, their body's just too big, they're elderly, they have injury, whatever it may be, the shin box is not working for them. And the fact that people think they have to universally do that exercise is not true. And even in some cases, you're going to find some people respond even better to using the lateral band walks to create stability in the hip, because of that idea of proximal stability for distal mobility. And the best way we can get into that hip and get more mobility is by stabilizing both the pelvis and the core. Now, what Jessica's done is she's put the band above her knees. Now, you'll see a lot of people debate, incessantly about where to put the band. I just like to keep it simple. Either it'll be above your knees or below your knees. A question about, should the band be around your ankles or your feet? Around the ankles is fine, as long as we've also put it around the knees, because I'll talk about what people do incorrectly with the band all the time. Around the feet, I don't like so much because I think it just wears out your band. You'll have the band snap and hopefully not hit someone in the face. So just from a safety standpoint, generally we're going to keep it very simple. What a lot of people don't understand is that whenever you put a band around the knees or the knee area, it's not magical as soon as you put the band around it. What you actually have to do is actively try to break the band. So whether you're squatting or doing a host of other exercises, you have to put active tension against the band. That's what makes it actually useful. So when Jessica does this, if it's above her knees, it's going to be easier than when it's below the knees. And what we're going to have to do is coach her a little bit upon what we want her to do. Because again, people sort of mindlessly do these lateral band walks. So the whole idea is when she's in that more athletic position, so we don't want her straight-legged because we won't connect the knee to the hip. We want her sitting back a little bit upon her hips a little bit more athletically. And what she's going to do is she's going to first take that big step. When she takes that big step, both feet have to be active. Because if I don't have both feet active, you'll see a collapse upon that trail leg. Remember, both legs are actually being stabilized here due to the action of the band. So when she steps out, I actually want both knees trying to break the band actively apart. So if she were to take a step towards me, you see how the knees go slightly outwards and that the band is being maximally stretched. Let's have her come back in. So again, just small step, or big step, small step. So she goes back the other direction, big step, see how she doesn't lose that trail leg, and she brings it back in. So again, a very relatively easy thing to coach as long as you understand some of the nuance to look for within the movement. Now, what we're going to be doing a lot with this series is sort of getting the idea of like what's happening with the rest of the body. Because a lot of people become fixated upon what's happening with the hips, but as you guys have already started to understand, the hips don't work by themselves. They need the assistance of the core muscles, especially the lats and the feet, to really be active to the highest potential. So a lot of times when people do a lateral band walk, there's no activation upon the trunk or the rest of the upper body, so we don't get that maximal activation that we want, because again, everything is part of a chain. So when we go through these progressions, we're going to go through how we mindfully sort of activate, the maximal chain when we do the lateral band walk. That will give us the ability to learn how to brace the trunk as we give stability to the hip, which will really help us develop better rotational mechanics. So I'd be lying if I didn't say that teaching rotation can be an interesting experience as a coach. And you really need to have some good proficiency of it first before you teach to clients, because clients often are mimicking our errors and in our performance. So you may not be actually modeling the movement correctly. So make sure you own the exercise first. Also appreciate that this is something that people may have either not done in a very long time or ever done in their life. So if you've never felt how something is supposed to feel, that can be very frustrating trying to take it purely from verbal cues. So something you can do to really help people, and you can use this in any of these drills, I'm not going to use it in every single one, I'm just going to use it as a teaching tool right now, is to just focus upon the footwork first. So I have a longer Superband, so Perform Better has these extra large Minibands, which are fantastic because they allow a little bit more stretch. And you don't need a ton of resistance, because I'm using this primarily for feedback. So I'm going to get in that stance. What I have is the band's around the ankle on this leg, and it's around the arch of my foot on this leg. So this will be my pivoting foot. So right now, just holding this position, if I get in that athletic position I talked about earlier, I already feel tension on the band. My feet are sort of wanting to grab the ground like we've shown in other progressions. So all I'm going to focus is on when I pivot, when I pivot, the band still pulls on this leg, so it helps me understand that both feet have to be active. I really want to feel the ball of my foot driving the ground, and then driving my heel back. So both phases of the movement are really important. A lot of times people will turn, they'll be pretty good, and they'll just drop down. Remember, I want to move with purpose because we're going to go into how that will set me up to add progressions. So again, just simply gain my athletic stance. My hips are slightly back, my knees are slightly bent. I have some tension against the band, so notice how my knees are kind of out, they're not falling in. So as I pivot, see the pivot is what turns my torso, not what's happening in my low back, and then I drive my heel to come back to the center. I do this, you can do this about 5 or 6 reps, and then you could easily just switch sides. So again, a wonderful type of drill to put in your warm-ups, start movement prep. It helps facilitate some of those stabilizers and muscles in the hips to help you understand, and they'll sort of waken everything up, and it'll make actually movement feel much better. So when you take that band off, you'll actually feel like your hips are a little bit lighter because, again, a lot of people don't take these ball and socket joints that are meant for circular motion into these ranges of motion. When you do so, it really frees a lot of the movement up. So where do we start? Because again, we always want to facilitate the hip motion with getting some stability through my trunk. So again, remember, using that example of plank, I don't want to lose my plank throughout the exercise. The easiest way to know if you're losing your plank is either by seeing the elevation of the ribs, which is also associated, and sometimes easier to see, by going to lumbar extension in the low back. So if you see either or happening, people are losing their plank. That means they're starting to reach, and typically you'll see that they're not pivoting all the way through the motion. Time and time again, when I'm doing rotational training, I'm watching people's feet first and foremost. And actually, you'll find when people fatigue, the foot motion stops first, and then sort of everything else through the chain falls apart. So be aware of that when you're coaching people. That's where we're going to start a lot of these very slow. So I'm going to show you the difference between 2 different drills that are very popular. So one is, again, when we get our arms straight out and we create tension, remember we're engaging that plank. We want lats, we want grip, that'll give us some core tension. So a lot of times people will start with a band. They'll grab outside hand in first, inside hand second, and they'll do a simple rotation. Now, is this bad? Of course it is not bad, all right? But my question often to coaches is, can we make an exercise better? So if you notice, one of the things that doesn't happen here is I don't have this arm really active, so I'm not creating some tension. So what I love to do is take bands like these, and now I can use both arms, all right? So basically, you'll have one hand a little higher than the other, but you'll create that tension, and now when I rotate, both hands are squeezing down, creating that engagement, creating that tension in my body. So again, I'm just pivoting, not losing my plank, driving my heel down. Notice how I'm squeezing, and also I'm not letting the hands come up. If you allow the hands to come up, then I break my lats, I break that connection to my core. So I can just start slow, and then I can add a little bit more speed to slow it back. So this is basically like learning to plank before I add more complex motion. Is this a small nuance that makes an exercise a lot more effective in giving feedback to your client so they can understand how to create that brace. Remember, the clients need to feel things to understand how to create movement, and we would need to give them tools that allow them to have that proper sensation of the exercise. Okay, so the final series using the band is going to be adding more layers, but not adding more load, but adding more range of motion to the exercise. Not what your lower body is doing, but what your upper body is doing. So let me explain. Jessica's going to go into a rotational press out, but once she hits that end point, creating tension, trying to break the back apart, she's going to start to come into a lift over her head, and then she'll chop the weight down as she comes back and pulls the weight in. So what will happen is, as the weight is moving up her body, that's creating more anti-extension force upon my trunk. So as I come up, then my body must resist the pull up by pressing down. So this teaches you 2 important concepts here. That as the weight starts to challenge me more, going over my head, I need to push down more of my feet, and I need to create even more tension or maximal tension in my hands and my grip. If you lose the tension in the hands or the feet, you'll find that you'll have an inability to resist the extension that the weight is placing upon your body. So again, you're understanding that everything comes back to feet and hands. how I activate my core comes back to my feet and hands. So this is the last tool we use because we don't want to live with this feedback. You'll see in a little bit how we take away the feedback as we had a later progression, but this is actually a relatively advanced drill. So Jess, let's come across, let her set up. So again, she's gonna create the tension first. You see how she has the bag low to her body. Don't make the mistake of raising up too high. She's gonna create the punch first, and then slowly bring it up. Now when she's over here, she's pulling apart as she's driving down, and she's gonna pull it back in. Let's do about 2 more, Jess. See how the punch comes with the rotation? No lumbar extension, driving through the feet. 1 more, Jess. Pull apart, and relax. Now, I know some of you are gonna be concerned about the range of motion in the upper body. Now, I just talked about proximal stability for distal mobility in the lower body. Same thing that works in the upper body. Now, would I have someone who had horrible range of motion in their upper body do this? Probably not. But if they're performing this drill, which as I said is relatively advanced, then I've already worked through some basic foundational mobility issues through some of the other exercises that we've shown you through the lift program. So at this point, if you're performing this exercise, I would think that we've cleared up some level of upper body mobility issues. Having said that, remember I said, the hips are dominant towards mobility. Thoracic spine is dominant towards mobility. So when people try to attack thoracic mobility all the time without creating core stability here, they're not actually solving the issue and they're actually taking the wrong approach. Remember, why would my thoracic spine lock down is if I'm not creating stability here, the next joint up is going to try to take on that responsibility. So again, creating that stability through the entire chain now allows me to open up in that thoracic spine. Of course, I have to accompany that with what I'm doing with my grip. So you can understand, part of the complexity is not just the range of motion that the bag is traveling through, it's the fact that I have to be mindful of my feet and hands at the same time as we're creating a dynamic motion, which has complexity and coordination upon itself. So again, if you haven't worked through these progressions, you just see a cool new exercise and try it, you're gonna find that a lot of people struggle in doing it successfully. That's why working through these progressions allows you to have the freedom to build success over time.